Hey, what's going on, Internet? It's been a couple days. Sorry I've been gone. Got wrapped up in some other shit. We're back with another deck tech. This one you might be familiar with. This is Hakim's Turbo Self Mill deck. Really wouldn't even classify it as that. Like, to me, this is a Seance deck with two win conditions. Technically three, I guess, but two main win conditions. The first being just cheating a Craterhoof Behemoth back into play and dealing damage, or emptying your library and seancing back a Lab Maniac and winning by drawing a card with an empty deck. And I guess you can also win just via regular damage with your random assortment of dudes. So his deck originally started out as just, he just wanted to win with Lab Maniac. And then, of course, when I saw it, I thought it was a cool deck, but I was like, you can make this deck better. So after a little arguing on Twitter or whatnot, we added in 4 cards: the Resolute Archangel, the Craterhoof, the single spider spawning, and the single Dinrova horror. And since then, I've changed one card also from that original list. This used to be a Gravedigger. I put in a Rescue from the Underworld. It's another thing you can get back with the Singleton Archaeomancer or the 3 Treasured Finds. And it actually allows you to win through a Planar cleansing, or if they remove your Seance, on the turn before you plan on getting a Laboratory Maniac back. Like, you can win through that by, rescuing one of your dudes on that final turn and then returning Lab Maniac. Now, hopefully, what you want to do when you rescue that Lab Maniac, like, you're hoping to, like, rescue it with a creature that does not have an enter the battlefield effect, which really is only the Hedron Crab. Everything else has an ETB, unfortunately. Because, if you rescue back the Lab Maniac and there's no other effects happening, like, they can't respond to it. It'll just fast forward through the upkeep. You draw a card and the game's over. However, let's say, you use anything else, a Wall of Omens to rescue back the Laboratory Maniac. So they're both going to come back into play at the same time. Laboratory Maniac doesn't have an enter the battlefield trigger. The Wall of Omens does. So, that'll be on the stack, and it'll actually give your opponent time to react at instant speed to kill your Lab Maniac. But also what you can do with Rescue from the Underworld, obviously, is, if you got a sizable enough board, you can just go end of turn, surprise, Craterhoof Behemoth, you're dead. Like, without even having a Seance. So I think it works, a lot better than the Singleton Gravedigger. And like I said, you do have the Archaeomancer, the 3 Treasured Finds to get it back. Just another way to win if you do not draw your Seance. But anyways, let's go through the deck list again, just in case you never saw that video or it's been a while. Got 3 Wall of Omens, 2 Seance, the real centerpiece of the deck. 1 Panic Cleansing. Get to that in a little bit. 1 Resolute Archangel, so, just gain life. Gain a ton of life, anywhere between, 0 and 19 life. 3 Hedron Crabs, 1 Laboratory Maniac, 1 Archaeomancer, 4 Necromancer's Assistant, 1 Shadowborn Demon, 1 Rescue from the Underworld, 1 Rune-Scarred Demon, 4 Elvish Visionary, 4 Satyr Wayfinder, 1 Spider Spawning, 1 Craterhoof Behemoth, 3 Sultai Soothsayer, and actually, this is the guy I think, makes this deck actually playable. Like, you could have built this deck without this dude, but, like, having 3 copies of him just makes the deck so much better. 1 Dinrova Horror, and 3 Treasured Finds. As far as lands go, we run a cool 24 lands standard. Half-tap lands, we basically run all the tri-lands that produce our colors. So that's fine, because usually, you do want to lead with tri-land turn 1. You don't really have any turn 1 plays aside from the Hedron Crab, where, you do have 2 basic islands to accommodate that. But, you can also just go, blue tri-land, Hedron Crab, other tri-land. Or, you just go tri-land, untap forest, play Wayfinder, or Visionary, or whatever. So really, these 12 tri-lands provide 9 of each color. So 9 plus 5 is 14, so we have 14 green sources. And you can look at our color distribution there. And we have 12 black sources, and then 11 and 11 of white and blue sources. And I think That's actually good enough to get to where we are. Now you could theoretically just go all tap lands if you wanted to and just permanently play the game a turn behind. Like, we do have the cards that support that. I mean, you only have to fit in 12 more cards, so you can just put in a bunch of guild gates, but I think that's slightly ridiculous. Anyways, a quarter deck, you want to mill yourself. In a deck like this, milling yourself is almost as good as just drawing a card. With the Seance, the Treasured Finds, to a lesser extent, the Archaeomancer. And then, you're filling up the graveyard for your spider spawning. So our big mill engines are the 3 Hedron Crabs, the 4 Necromancer's Assistant, the 4 Satyr Wayfinders, and the 3 Sultai Soothsayer. And then as far as, cantripping, having early drops, cantripping, and just having an early defense, is basically, you're just going to win on just one crazy turn. Either drawing a card with an empty library, the Lab Maniac can play, or just some ridiculous Craterhoof attack. So you got 3 Wall of Omens and 4 Elvish Visionaries, and also find cards the Seance, just because, just like drawing a card. So we have our little utility creatures. We already went over to Resolute Archangel. The Archaeomancer to either get back Treasured Find, or get back Planar Cleansing, or Rescue from the Underworld. The reason you want to get back a Treasured Find is if we mill a Seance, Treasured Find is the only way we can really get that out of the graveyard. I don't believe, putting red in the deck to have Warden of the Eye, like, the mana is already, I mean, look at this. It's already wonky enough. Like, you don't want to go to full 5 colors just to support Warden of the Eye. Yes, he would be able to get back the Seance, but I don't think it's worth the trouble. Here's Laboratory Maniac. Again, if you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. Sometimes, depending on what you're playing against, if you're confident, you can actually win with Lab Maniac on their turn. It requires, 2 Seances. So you would just, if you have no cards left in hand, or no cards left in your library for whatever reason, then you would just Seance, and then the Lab Maniac, and with the other Seance, either a Wall of Omens or an Elvish Visionary. Super risky, but it's something you can do. So again, the Archaeomancer, back to him, and you get back, the Treasured Finds, which in turn can get back, anything in the graveyard. A lot of the time, I like to, if you just have to fire off an early spider spawning, like, I'll just get back the spider spawning and cast it again. I usually don't want to flashback it and just get rid of it permanently, unless, like, I know I'm either going to win the game the next turn or I'm in deep trouble. And he also gets back the Singleton Planar Cleansing, which is basically a panic reset button. That's why everyone calls it Panic Cleansing. Usually, in most games I play with this, like, it's not necessary. Like, I'm either going to lose, and a Planar Cleansing maybe could have done something about it, but probably not. Because you also, have to reset your whole engine again to get going, especially if you Planar Cleanse your own Seance. But, I think one's fine. Like I said, when you're milling cards in a deck like this, you're basically drawing cards, so you don't have to play both. If you didn't want to play the Planar Cleansing, I would recommend either like a Palisade Giant or a Reclamation, or a Reclamation Sage for emergencies. But even then, Reclamation Sage I don't believe is a May ability. So like if you have the Seance back in emergency blocker, like, oh, you may. Okay, so you wouldn't blow up your own Seance, so it is May. So never mind on that. So other Silver Bullet cards, Shadowborn Demon, just kill something crazy. Gets out of hand, and also, if you hard cast it, you can help fill the graveyard. We have our Singleton Rune-Scarred Demon, just a wild card for, any piece you may need at the time. I usually don't like to run both, but like I said, you can get away with a lot of Singletons in a deck like this because you're effectively drawing so many cards by milling them. We have the 1 spider spawning. Oops, get back in there. Which is, obviously you have the spawning Craterhoof combo for lethal. But also just there, just to hold down the fort until you can piece together your win condition. And we already went over, like, if you can help it, try not to flashback it, like, unless you really need to. Just try and pull it back into your hand somehow, then cast it, and then just make a bunch of spiders. Craterhoof, let's be real, that's the main win condition. Like, you just Seance out of Craterhoof or cheat it into play with Rescue from the Underworld. And the only creatures in the deck that don't attack are the stupid wall of Omens. So Hedron Crabs can actually attack. And, it usually doesn't take too many creatures. You don't need a horde of creatures to make a Craterhoof lethal. And finally, the Singleton Dinrova Horror. He's actually in there, another way to deal with opposing permanents, but also, if you naturally draw, like, one of your super expensive spells, and you have a Seance in play, you want to be able to, like, get it down early, you could just Dinrova Horror. You can Dinrova Horror itself, actually. You can cast Dinrova Horror, bounce your own Dinrova Horror, and then you have to discard a card from your hand. So, like, if you ever naturally draw the Lab Maniac, he does nothing in your hand. And you don't ever want to hard cast him, because there are a lot of exile effects in the game, like Anger of the Gods or Angelic Edict. So it's very risky to have him, actually on the battlefield. So it's a way to get Laboratory Maniac out of your hand. It's also a way, let's say Dinrova is in the graveyard, and, like, you're like, okay, I need the Planar Cleanse, and you have a Seance in play, you can Seance back the Dinrova Horror, bounce your own Seance to hand, and then, discard whatever, and then Planar Cleanse, and then you can follow up that Planar Cleansing with the Seance. And then, get back on track without, worrying about having to draw another Treasured Find to get the Seance back. So a little techie card there. And as far as, our recursion, we have one of our 3 Treasured Finds, the Archaeomancer, and the Rescue. And yeah, it is a fairly straightforward deck. Most of the challenge, in quotes, is, sequencing your lands correctly. Like I said, in the early game, you want to, be playing your tap lands. Like, you go turn 1 tap land. It's usually the best thing, unless you've drawn a Hedron Crab and you have an island. But usually you're not going to see that. So you definitely want to be dropping tap lands turn 1. And then, depending on your hand, you just drop another tap land. Later on in the game, like when you're fetching lands with the Satyr Wayfinder, like, just draw, basics. Like, once you have, a set number of tap lands, just draw basics. You never know when, you need the mana. And, I've seen a couple games where, people have just, they just keep fetching the tap lands, and it's actually, turned off a lot of plays in the future for them. So, yeah, that's really it. Like I said, you've probably seen this deck before. I'm going to do 3 episodes with it, and then we'll go from there. Not a tier 1 deck, but it is definitely an effective deck and can be powerful. So pretty weak against, like, the stuff like the aura decks, like if they just get an aura too quickly, or definitely the Artful Dodge decks are a problem. Like, this is surprisingly effective at, like, holding off nonsense like token decks and stuff, as long as they don't hit a Beastmaster. And, it's pretty good against mid-range decks too, because, they take a while to get going, and that's all you want. You just want time. But, okay, that's it. And we'll be back later with some gameplay. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.